So, good morning once again, dear all, respected professors, seniors. I'm very much thankful to Ahmedabad Surgeons Association and Sunil sir for providing me this opportunity. Probably I'm the youngest member in this group, and it's a great opportunity for me. First of all, I would just introduce my new hospital. It's Endovasc Hospital. We shifted to Ashram Road near Wadaj just before 6 months, and it's an exclusive center for veins and vascular surgeries. Today, I would be discussing on management of vascular compromise in non-healing wounds. So, as we all know, it's limb salvage has been always a challenge, and it's not a one-man show. It's a teamwork, as Madam also discussed. Why we would be seeing in next few slides. So, this is a young girl who was referred to me 1 month back. 22 years old girl with a bad infected wound and non-healing in nature since almost 4 to 5 years. And if you see, she has you can see some vicryl tie. Somebody tried to debride it and ended up in massive bleeding, and patient's hemoglobin became 4.5. There are bleeding areas, and a lot of interventions were done in this case. Patient had a deformity. And after debridement, they would have seen that patient has multiple AVM. The AV communications are ranging from iliac artery up to the toes. And then these kind of patients inform that the limb salvage is really can be a challenge. We'll see what we did in this case. So wounds and vascular surgeons are definitely connected. Being a vascular surgeon, we see patients coming up with peripheral arterial disease. They have atherosclerosis, Buerger's disease, or diabetic peripheral vascular disease. They may have venous insufficiency in form of post-thrombotic syndrome or valvular incompetency, reversal, or mixed of them. We see very rarely 5% of our patients would come with vasculitis, AV malformation, AV fistulas, or lymphatic edema. My talk is not only limited to diabetic PVD. I have tried to cover everything so that it would be a eagle's eye view on the wounds and vascular surgeries. So arterial and venous diseases and wounds are very easy to differentiate by inspection as well as local examination, and the management also differs. So it is important to differentiate whether the patient has pure arterial, pure venous, or mixed insufficiency. I will start with arterial wounds. There are certain fixed risk factors like atherosclerosis, diabetes, Buerger's disease, and vasculitis, and there are certain modifiable factors: smoking, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, obesity, and diabetes. In my practice, smoking is very important factor, and I always try to get rid the patient of tobacco in any form. The various options what we have is best medical management, endovascular options like primary angioplasty, drug-coated balloon stenting, and surgical revascularization, definitely gold standard option. Then comes the wound management and adjunctive therapies where other specialties are also involved. Challenge is being a practitioner in Ahmedabad and in an era of a lot of government schemes. We see delayed presentations or redo kind of cases where patients have long occlusions, patients have calcified vessels, infection, renal dysfunction, lot many other comorbidities, and delayed presentation as we saw. So this is very important slide. What are your strategies? First of all, correcting the inflow and then going to the outflow is very important. This photograph is one of my favorite. I had done an aorta BiFAM in 2013, and if the patient has femoropopliteal disease as well as aorta iliac, you have to correct the aortic inflow part first, and then only you should go for look at the distal vessels. You may even not correct them because correcting inflow and going through profunda will help the patient. So goal is to establish inline flow to the foot, particularly for diabetic patients. Giving a palpable pulse is very important. Angiosome concept I'll show in a next slide. And successful wound healing depends on good revascularization. Open as well as endovascular both have almost equivalent results, but you have to select judiciously. So my strategy is salvaging the limb, but the goal is not primary patency and limb salvage. Many a times we think that the bypass will last for long and we should do this and that. But if the wound is healed and limb is salvaged, even after that, if the revascularized segment occludes, it's okay. So that has to be kept in mind. Endovascular is preferred for elderly patients and surgery is reserved for long occlusions, failed plasties, recurrent lesions and healthy patients. Now, endo always first. Many vascular specialists and other interventionists prefer this strategy, but it's a wrong strategy. You have to offer what patient needs and not keep on doing what you know. So endo or open, whatever is best for patient, we have to offer that. And as madam said, primary amputation is reserved for non-reconstructible vessels, persistent infection or sepsis, and when the patient has paralysis or fixed contracture. Angiozone is a concept where we try to revascularize the particular artery. For example, if the patient has involvement of grade 2 area going up to the medial plantar artery, and if the lateral foot is involved, lateral plantar artery revascularization can be done. This is followed almost by 50% of the practitioners. But what I have observed, even if you revascularize one of the distal vessel, it is good enough. So same thing, two different territories. Now coming to the hardcore vascular surgery where long iliac and SFA occlusion, this patient had a great toe gangrene and second toe was also affected. Unfortunately, the lesion was starting from common iliac up to the mid SFA, even the common femoral artery is not seen. So endovascular is not a good option. We exposed the common iliac artery in retroperitoneum, grafted it with a 7 mm Dacron prosthesis and tunneled it properly anatomically and gave a bypass. And this was done 2 months back. Patient is doing quite well. We had to amputate his great toe and second toe, but the wounds are healing now. This is juxtarenal aortic occlusion, the most challenging part when we are considering revascularization, because the renal arteries are also not seen here. And when I started doing bypass, you can see the aortic exposure. It's very thrilling to cut the aorta without clamp. You can see the aorta is transected. You can see the distal part, and then there will be a bullet-like thrombus as well as endarterectomized segment will come out, and then we do a prosthetic bypass. So this was done, I think, probably 6 years back. Now coming to the infrainguinal part, where you can see a long SFA is occluded, even popliteal and tibioperoneal trunks are bad. In these kind of patients, what I feel is giving a long bypass using the vein is very important. In this flimsy looking vessels, you can see the vessel is exposed for tibioperoneal trunk and posterior tibial artery, and doing a good anastomosis and bypass is the best policy. Similarly, right-sided popliteal artery occluded, a bypass is given to the infragenicular posterior tibial artery. The photograph itself shows that vein is looking good and artery is also fine, so patient will do very nice. A small occlusion in the popliteal part. In nowadays, I do angioplasty for this kind of patient, but this patient I had operated when I was not very much into endo. So I did a small bypass and then debrided the part, fifth toe and the foot was debrided. You can see good vascularization after procedure. Even the second toe, which was looking bad, is healed after doing revascularization, and obviously patient is very happy. One of the FemPop bypass, femtibial bypass, here the important thing for general surgeons is the right side looks worse than left side, but the patient has gangrene of left great toe, right side is asymptomatic. So I had done a vein bypass, and you can see the revascularized area after 1 year of follow-up. The toe was healed easily in 1 month, and you can see the revascularized foot. And very rarely we do upper limb bypass, particularly for Buerger's patients and added by early atherosclerosis. So in this case, patient's vein was harvested from upper limb itself and anastomosed proximally to axillary artery and distally to the radial artery. He did quite well, but then he restarted tobacco, and 2 years later they informed that again the graft is occluded. Now coming to a different territory, diabetic foot infection as well as ischemia. There is a mixture of these two things, as madam already discussed. As seen in this case, I didn't do anything for vascular part, but debrided the foot part, and patient, it has been 8 years now and patient is doing quite good. Chintan Bhai would be discussing many cases like this, so I'm not going into detail. This is a very important case where 83-year-old lady with uncontrolled diabetes and severe tibial disease presented to us. She was advised amputation by 6 to 7 surgeons in Saurashtra. And when I checked with my hand Doppler, I could hear good signals on anterior and posterior tibia. So not all decisions are based on angiographies. Here there is a favorite sign. The 3 red granulating spots is my favorite site, and we debrided that wound. Next day the wound was not looking good, and we went on to VAC, negative pressure wound therapy. And with 8 VAC and good antibiotic and antiplatelets, patient recovered well. Then plastic surgery, skin grafting was done, and limb was salvaged. Now one last diabetic foot case where patient had a severe tibial disease and 3 toes were gangrene. Here below knee angioplasty was done. This is a very tricky scenario where we do plasties, but we have to explain that it may or may not work. But we try our best to do revascularization in this area. And as seen in this case, there are now dedicated below the knee balloons and hardware is available, and we are seeing good results. You can see the result after 2 weeks. Fourth post-op week, you can see the granulation has started, and almost in 1.5 month time, patient is ready to go for either grafting or this healed actually without any intervention. So it healed primarily. Now the key steps are good quality of vein or graft, as we discussed, selection of inflow and outflow, antibiotic coverage, aggressive foot debridement, good antiplatelet. Nowadays we are adding rivaroxaban also. That is a dual pathway inhibitor. Along with aspirin, we give Xarelto 2.5 mg, which works very nice for this kind of patients. And yes, adjuvant therapies like surgical debridement, advanced wound care, hyperbaric oxygen, Artasist, and podiatrist support. Hyperbaric oxygen is already discussed. Now coming to a few slides about venous wounds. Majority of the venous wounds are likely due to reflux disease, that is classic varicose veins and venous insufficiency, where we do ablation, sclerotherapy or ligation. Some of them are due to post-thrombotic syndrome, that is an obstructive pattern, and where their venous stenting can be recommended. But I have seen in my practice that most of these post-thrombotic patients also do well with good compression garment and some sort of counseling, improving their calf muscles and reducing their obesity. So not all venous obstructions are dealt with venous stenting, which is it's a misnomer in community or patient that this vessel is occluded and open it up. It's not necessary, because venous stenting has very high risk of getting re-occlusion. So we have to offer very judiciously. So 2 cases of venous ulceration. One where patient had undergone 2 surgeries, laser and sclero in past, and then he developed this ulcer and came to me. I just did debridement and skin grafting and put him on good compression and it healed. Again, this fellow is my staff now. He had 2-3 interventions done for this, and he is an obese fellow, had multiple perforator incompetency. We debrided, did skin grafting, and he is doing fine since almost last 3 years now. A case of post-thrombotic syndrome with superadded infection. Debridement was done, anticoagulant was started, and the patient's wound healed with VAC and skin grafting. So in majority of the venous part, role of vascular surgeon is to correct at the local level problems, and compression, elevation, reduction of obesity and calf pumping, as I discussed, will help. This fellow had an infected wound, came from Hyderabad. We did debridement and the wound healed very nicely. Now, this is a very rare kind of scenario where vasculitic ulcer, this wound looks like mixed of venous insufficiency and vasculitis, but it didn't respond to standard compression therapy. And we took a biopsy from the wound, which came as vasculitis. We started him on steroid and the wound healed very nicely. Now, coming back to the first problem where we started, what we did for this patient. So I tried doing angiography again, supposing somebody has missed something, but it was almost impossible to put glue or coils at all the places. She had lost a lot of money and they requested do something. I thought what I can do to save this girl, because otherwise she was going into depression. And one fine day, compression came to mind, and we just started doing compression, bandaging, and within I think 6 to 7 dressings, you can see the wound is so nice. It will heal. I think this photograph is 1 week back, and now I'm very sure that this girl's wound will definitely heal. Yeah, she will need to use compression bandaging for lifelong because these AV communications are not taken care of, and there is a fixed deformity. But even doing amputation was not a good option because of the AV high flow. So not all candidates have to be offered surgery. Not doing vascular surgery also is an option to heal certain wounds. Coming to the conclusion, limb salvage should be accepted as a responsibility. Initial detailed evaluation is the most important thing. Team approach definitely helps. Judicious use of multiple adjuvant therapy might be required, and newer technologies help, and they should be accepted properly. Let's save limbs and lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujal.
Thank you, sir.
It was an excellent presentation covering all arterial, venous, lymphatic, and all malformations and fistulas, everything. So it was a nice coverage in a very short span of time.
Thank you, sir.
Just for the information of the House, as a president of Indian Society of Wound Management in 2008 to 12, we have published two textbooks. One is the textbooks of wound management, and one is the textbook on diabetic food. And House can utilize that. It is available on JP Brothers, and it was written by VK Shukla, the past president at that time, and he was from Banaras Hindu University. Any questions from anyone? Any participants?
Sujal, wonderful lecture, and I am sure 20 minutes is not enough for you. You can go on talking for a couple of hours with so much of clinical material available. However, some question, first of all, regarding obese patients. In obese patients and in post-bariatric patient, we see superficial ulcers on the lower leg, on the shin. So, what is the cause and what is the remedy?
Yeah. So, as you rightly said, sir, obesity and chronic venous insufficiency are very much connected. It has been studied that vena cava is the most compressible structure in abdomen, and in these obese patients, there is a compression of vena cava. Some people have tried venous stenting even in non-obstructed IVC also. What I have realized that once you do bariatric surgery, these ulcers start healing, and then simple compression to control the venous hypertension at perforator level would be good enough. Once there are certain valves which have gone, even deep veins might be refluxing, but good stockings would definitely help them, and advising them on improving their calf pumping will be very beneficial. So counseling is a very important part of these ulcers.
Thank you. There were another question from the our audience. We had one question from Dr. Vibhakar Vacharajani from Rajkot, who is watching our live telecast, regarding showing the different types of wounds or unusual types of wounds. I'm sure both the speakers have shown very nice photographs of unusual wounds, and another two speakers will also show wounds as we go across. Another question was different kinds of dressings being used in a variety of wounds. I think Dr. Swati covered nicely the variety of wound dressings being used, and in next lecture also